Dom is a World War II veteran of the United States Army, served in the European theater in the Battle of the Bulge, as everybody was called that direction when that battle took place. In the Quartermaster Corps, 5th
5th Infantry Division, 7th Army.
5th Infantry, 7th Army. Come on, Monty, get on up here.
Oh, I don't know if I can make it. Okay.
All right.
Well, good morning. Anybody here 18 years old? No 18-year-olds? How about 17-year-olds? That's close enough. Yeah. A couple of things I want to ask you before I start about World War II. Do you know how many casualties there were during the Iraqi War? It was 10 years. Anybody have any idea how many casualties, American casualties? It was a little over 4,000 casualties. In Afghanistan, in 13 years, there was about little over 2,000. Anybody know how many casualties we had in World War II from 1941 to 1945? Any idea? It was 483,000 in 4 years. When you think about that. D-Day alone, there was 10,000. The Battle of the Bulge, there was 19,000 in 2 months. Well, you think about that. That's. Well, anyway, I was 18 years old. I lived in Buffalo, New York. 1943. I was my 3rd year high school, and everybody had a draft number. And my number came up. I went up for the post office where they had the physicals for the Army, Navy, Marines, the whole military. And I got to the hearing, and I was born deaf in one ear. Never hear out of this ear. So they turned me down. They put me in 4F, which means not fit for military duty. So I went home, and 3 months later, March of 1944, I got a recall. Went back to the post office, went through the physical, got to the hearing part, and they said, well, we know all about you, but we're going to draft you anyway and put you in limited service. So I said, well, what's limited service? No overseas duty, all stateside. Okay, because that guy, everybody was gone. No one drafted out. There was a few, but anyway, so they put me in an outfit of 9 of us rookies went to Camp Ellis, Illinois, in an outfit with 250 people in it, 4 platoons. That was March of 1944. So I went through all my basic training and all that, and September of 1944, which was a few months later, I was on Omaha Beach. They told me I wasn't going overseas, but I did Normandy, landed on Normandy. We went over on the Queen Elizabeth. There was about 14,000 of us on it. It's a troop ship. It's regularly a luxury ship. They took all the beds and stuff out, put us in hammocks. It took us 7 days and 6 nights to get to Glasgow, Scotland. We had English food, terrible. In the morning for breakfast, we had fried tomatoes, tea, a crumpet, maybe some coffee. And at night, we never had lunch. And I don't know what we had, I can't remember, it was fish, some kind of meat. And we had to sleep with our clothes on. They wouldn't let us take our clothes off, just your shoes. Carried your weapon, your life preserver, your duffel bag, everything that belonged to you. Right there, it was about, I don't know, maybe 12 or something in the stateroom hammocks. I was in the second one as you walked in the door. Terrible. Anyway, when we got to Glasgow, Scotland, they put us in this great big warehouse for 2 weeks, throwing up, diarrhea, sick. Everybody just, they made us well again so we could finally travel. So they put us, my outfit was I was with the 7th Army, 5th Infantry Division, 3051 Salvage and Collecting Quartermaster. Our job was to go up to the front lines, under fire at times, and signs we weren't, to pick up broken down vehicles, jeeps, tanks, trucks, just about everything. And then to the brave registration we'd go to pick up the rifles, the ammunitions, the grenades, the bullets, and the clothing of the deceased GIs. We didn't take the clothes off. The medical, they call themselves the brave registration. And we take them back to ordnance, and back there they would clean them up, reissue them. Those that they couldn't clean up, the clothes I'm talking about, they would burn them. But the tanks and the jeeps and trucks and stuff, they would repair them and send them back up to the front lines. So anyway, we landed on Omaha Beach September the 28th in trucks. We didn't land like D-Day. D-Day was terrible, believe me, it was terrible over there. We landed, drove out with our trucks, and we were between Utah and Omaha, close by. We went through the beach, and then we went to Brest, France. I don't know if you know where that is. That's the southern part of France. And I went through the whole southern France during the war. I was there 1 year. Went to, the worst site that I can remember is we got to Luneville, France. And we had a detail to go up to the grave registration to pick up the clothing. Well, we drove in this compound. There was a canvas compound, higher than this, high as the ceiling, maybe long. We drove in, and there was all these deceased bodies laying in the ground yet. They had them covered with white sheets of dead GIs. GIs was government issue. That was what we called ourselves in World War II. It was the soldiers. These are GIs, government issue they call this. And that was a terrible sight to see. You see that, you'd never forget that. You go to the funeral parlor and you see relatives that pass away, but to see all these young men. And there were civilians there too, they took care of. Well, anyway, we pick up the clothing, take it back, and from there we went all the way to Salzburg, Austria, is where the war ended. The Germans really surrendered May the 5th, but the official date, I think, was May the 8th or the 9th, something like that, when they signed the papers. And our job was to go, like I say, up to the front lines and pick up all this stuff. We'd go under fire a lot of times, go through these villages, bomb down buildings and homes, and that's where we slept. We slept in, I didn't sleep in many. Foxholes, very, very, never foxhole. The trench, we did sleep a couple times. But mostly, we try to get to a broken down home or a building or something, or put up a tent. We had tents. See, we were the quartermaster. We weren't like the infantry. The infantry, they slept in the foxholes, the trenches. They were right up on the lines. We were behind the lines. And, well, let's see, what else? You want to show them some?
Yeah, well, let's start with your first one here.
Now, that was, the war ended in Germany. They gave us a 30-day furlough. I came back to the United States, and this picture was taken in Rochester, New York, at my aunt and uncle's house when I was on furlough. In fact, this is the jacket, and this is the hat, like you see there. And getting ready to go to Japan. So what happened was, after my 30-day furlough, let's see, how can I start all this? There was rumors out about this huge bomb that the Nazis had that would wipe out a complete city. But that was pretty hard for us to believe. We had two bombs. The 500-pounder, which would do a lot of damage. The 1,000-pounder would wipe out one street. Right? That was a pretty good-sized bomb that we had. Then we heard about this atomic bomb that Hitler had, that would wipe out a whole city. It was pretty hard to believe. Well, anyway, I was in Fort Dix after my furlough, and it was early in the morning. There was all this noise, glass breaking, guys running through the barracks. What the hell is going on? They said the war, Japan surrendered. What they did is, before they dropped the first bomb, they sent planes over Japan dropping leaflets. I don't remember what the leaflets said. They wanted them to surrender. They warned them. Evidently, they did not surrender. Now, Horatio wanted to surrender. It was the Japanese the generals that did not want to surrender. So they didn't. So they dropped the first bomb. Then they still didn't surrender. So I guess they waited a week or two, a couple
3
weeks.
days.
What was it? I can't
3
remember.
days.
Yeah.
August 6th, they dropped the first one.
Yeah, right.
Again, asked for surrender. No response from the Japanese government. So 3 days later, they dropped another bomb, August
They
9th,
dropped the second
Nagasaki.
bomb. That's when they surrendered. That's when the guys come running through and said the Japs surrendered. I think, well, heck, we're going to get discharged, but I didn't get discharged. That was in, actually the day was the 14th of August, is when officially it was over with the Japanese, the war ended. But I didn't get out till the April of '46, because I didn't have enough points. You had to have so many points, you had to have 86 points to get out at the beginning, and I only had 48 points. It was for medals, for term, whatever you did in the Army, and it was, you know. And, but I did went through, it was very cold. That year was the coldest, '44 was the coldest winter in 50 years. And let me tell you guys something, it was cold. Believe me, it was cold. And we were running out of it, we got caught in the Battle of the Bulge, which took in a big area, not just Bastogne. That was more than a simple, it took was two armies there, the 3rd Army Patton had and the 7th Army General Patch had. It was just amazing. In fact, he wanted to go all the way to Moscow. He didn't want to stop in Berlin, he just wanted to keep on going. In fact, they made him stop 3 days out of Berlin. They made him wait for the Russians to come in for 3 days. He didn't like that. Did you ever see the movie Patton? Anybody see that movie? Oh, God, you gotta see that movie. You should rent that. So anyway, that's the way I spent my time in Europe, and don't forget I was only 18 years old. I mean, I was no, you know, old man, but I was in the Army 2 years. Each one of these is a year. And let's see here. I want to pass these around. This is what I brought back, one of the things I brought back from, took off a German swastika. Now, these are my dog tags. It's got my name, religion, and blood type. Do you know why they gave us 2 dog tags? Anybody know why? Nobody knows. One, they would, deceased, I'm talking about if you get killed, deceased. They either put it in your mouth or in your toes. And the other goes to Washington to identify the bodies. And what they did is, the grave registration, where they took the bodies, they put them in white sheets and just buried them temporarily, because there was so many of them. Then I guess later on they went back and dug them up and put them in caskets or boxes, whatever they were, and then put them in the cemeteries. Like you see the white crosses, you see in Normandy.
They saw that yesterday. They saw the white crosses in Holland at one of the big cemeteries.
Yeah. Now they have a big one in Normandy too. I never did go back to Normandy. Once was enough for me, but is there anything else you want to show them?
Yeah, let's show some more pictures. I got more you can tell them. We talked about this one.
Now, if there's anything you want to know, just interrupt and ask, because, you know, I could go on all day and talk about a lot of stuff that we went through.
All right. How about this one?
You know, that was taken in France. See, being a quartermaster, we were behind the lines. We had a lot of free time sometimes. And there was a studio there that was taking pictures of the GI. I call them GIs, the soldiers, you know, American soldiers. And that's me, that's the uniform that I wore all the way through in France, in Germany. That's the uniform right there. Don't forget, I was actually almost 19 there. I was first one in the Army. There it is, 18 years old, with my helmet on. And this was taken in the States before we went overseas. Getting ready to go overseas and take pictures of us. That was in France. You can see the woods behind him. The rifle. The rifle that I carried was a carbine, 30 caliber carbine, semi-automatic. 30 clips in there, and you could pull the trigger pull it back one time, and then boom, 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 30 bullets will come right out. I carried that with me. That was my lifesaver. They told us to eat, sleep, go to the bathroom, anything, but you got to keep that rifle clean. That's your lifesaver, because if you didn't have that, you were cooked. I carried 6 grenades. Then I got into I was the 3rd cook, maybe 3rd cook. I didn't have to go up the front lines, but the guys bring back I had to stay back behind there and peel potatoes for it. And that's me peeling, but that is in Germany there, that picture there, see it?
This is also where you had that a German plane was coming over.
Yeah, well, see, we landed in Germany and we set up camp. The boys would go up. See, there's 4 platoons. 1 platoon would go to Rancho Bernardo, okay? 1 platoon would go to Poway. Another platoon would go to Mira Mesa. The other platoon would go to Penasquitos. That's an area, different areas, 1, 2, 3, and that would, you would cover Penasquitos, you would cover Rancho Bernardo, that was your area. And there was 250 of us, different, 4 platoons of us. And when they come back, if we had time, we'd set up camp. We were gonna be there maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks. It was like a base, you know, we were behind the lines. But the only thing we went through over there was that every night, see, you can't see the trenches, but every tent had a trench. And we started sleeping in the tents there. Every night at 10 o'clock, we hear this roar overhead, roar, roar. It was a German reconnaissance plane checking the area out, trying to draw fire from, not my outfit, but the anti-aircraft that was there, to get their position so they could fire back. We used to call them Bet Check Charlie. Every night, 10 o'clock sharp, you come by, you could hear them coming through there. That's what,
They told you not to fire,
no,
right?
no, we couldn't fire back. Yeah, we never fired, even the anti-aircraft guy, never fired back. Because they would shoot down, but if they did, they would give away their positions, and that's what they were looking for. So they never fired back, but every
Yes.
night, 10 o'clock.
They had spies, plus their artillery positions,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
were set to go wherever they saw fire coming from your camp, and they would train their 88 millimeters on that. And they could be subject to cannon fire from 2-3 miles away.
Well, I was very happy to be a third cook. We had 3 cooks. One was, Teddy got killed. And they wanted to volunteer, I volunteered for it. That saved me from going up to the front lines with the guys that pick up all that equipment. I just stayed behind it. But kind of glad to do that, because they come back and you can see holes in the canvas that they have over the trucks. We call them 6x6s, the trucks. And it's pretty dangerous going up there. And not only the enemy, but there were snipers. Even the civilians would shoot at the GIs from the houses, from any places, bushes and stuff. Well, you had to be very careful over there. Then they had mines. We were going down the road one day, and I was in truck 13. And all of a sudden, here comes the Messerschmitts, strafing the whole area. And I jumped out of the truck, because I didn't know what was going on. We jumped out of the truck, and then ahead of us was a wrecker. Well, it's like a tow truck, but 3 times bigger than the tow trucks you see here. Those are to pick up the tanks. They hit a landmine, mine in the road, and blew it and killed 3 GIs right in front. You can see it exploding. Killed 3 of my buddies in that truck. And that's when we were being strafed. That was pretty close for me. I can never forget that one. Jumping out of that truck and into the ditch over there, and you could hear it. Ping, 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 ping. And they're oh, no, another one coming. That's what they call strafing. They go through and strafe the area. That was pretty scary. Very scary for me. Then another one, we were in this building in the Bastogne area, and it was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. The sergeant come running in and says, "Let's get the hell out of here. The Germans are down the street. Fix bayonets." Oh, I hated to hear that. That means hand-to-hand combat, you know. And we were quartermaster. We weren't even infantry. And the infantry carried them bayonet most of the time with them. They're always having hand-to-hand combat. So we left everything behind, got in the trucks and got out of the area. We were quite a ways away from Bastogne, though. It was a big area. And when we came back about 3 or 4 days later, we come back. Well, what happened was we were running out of ammunition, and it was haze over, like a fog. We could hear planes flying overhead night and day, but they could not drop the supplies because they couldn't see. So one day it kind of opened up a little bit, and they dropped the supplies. Someone behind the German lines, someone in our lines. So we gathered and got back to normal, and then we kicked the shit out of Hitler. That's what we called it. Well, we did after that because we beat him. But we always say that. I hate to say that word, but that's what I think. GI will tell you that was in that. But we defeated Hitler in, of course, the war ended. But it was pretty cold over there. And there's 2 or 3 movies that you should try to get that was made right after the war. That was Battleground with Van Johnson. You ought to write these down if you can get them, boy. I'll tell you, these are true to form. Battleground Battle of the Bulge, Go for Broke, those three. And of course, The Longest Day. Ever see The Longest Day?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. God, you know, you should look at these, they're stunning pictures. These are real.
Go for Broke is the story of the Japanese American regiment, the 442nd.
Yeah.
So while their families were being interned, they were fighting the Germans over in Europe, and they were the most highly decorated combat unit in the Second World War. Japanese American unit.
They fought in Europe only. They didn't send them to the Pacific, just Europe. You should try to get them. You could get them, those movies. You should see. Anybody see Private Ryan, Saving Private Ryan? What did you think about that movie? Well, I'll tell you, the first 5 or 10 minutes, can't beat it. It was pretty tough. But the rest of it was all Hollywood. If you talk to any veteran, he'll tell you the same thing. The one scene where the German, they caught that German soldier and they let him go down the lane. You remember that scene where he's walking down the lane?
They let him walk away.
Walk away, and then about 10 minutes later, they show him up in the building, going to kill the GI. And honey, they would have never let him walk away. And they would have killed him or took him prisoner. That was, I don't understand Spielberg and Hanks. But anyway, that's the movie for it. But I don't. But these.
Yeah, the first 20 minutes was the invasion,
Yeah.
D-Day.
But these 3 or 4 movies that I told you about, you should really try to get them. These were when Van Johnson was in. This is right after the war, back in the 50s. That's true war. D-Day, they were lucky where they were. They couldn't get right up to the beach. And then when they did get on the beach, they had all those obstacles in the way. When we got to the engineers had some of them taken out. There were still some there. There was ways of getting up in there, get into the village. We had to move fast. And when we went through a village, we had to go. Trucks were only good for 45 miles an hour. They had a governor on them. You couldn't go any faster. We had to go fast because there was people shooting from the windows, snipers from the windows, picking off GIs. Not just the Canadians or whatever were. They were collaborators. They call them the German collaborators with the Germans, you know. And
Dom, tell them about your that church that you almost went in because you wanted to.
Germany. We're walking down the street. It was a nice little village, and it was a sunny day, and we were just walking around because, you know, like I said, we were behind the lines. The infantry was way ahead of us. We went by this one little church, white picket fence, a cute little church, and I'm a Catholic. So I said to my buddy Murphy, I said, hey Murph, let's go and say a few prayers. So we started to walk toward the church door, and I said, you know, I don't think we should go in there. I said, no, it wouldn't be fair. I don't want to go. Let's not do it. He said, yeah. I said, no, we won't. So that's exactly what I said. No, I don't think so. Let's go. Okay. I don't want to disturb it. Well, come to find out, 3 days later, we found out that some GI did go in there. It was booby trap, blew the church, killed them. 3 of them were killed. It's a good thing I didn't go in there. I didn't want to go. I wanted to say a prayer, but we didn't go. That was pretty close that time. And this was in Germany, and the war was just about over with. So, but
Had to be the SS. Because they did a lot of the booby traps.
Yeah,
when they were vacating areas. They would set up booby traps. A lot of mines, too.
Very careful over there. And well, you know, do you have any questions? Maybe I can. Yes?
How did it feel to be so young and so far away from your home fighting?
Well, let me tell you this. That's a good question. Well, we went in and 18 years old. And the only gun that I ever played with was a cat pistol. I was either Tom Mix or Buck Jones or Cowboy, you know, shooting the Indians with caps. And now they give me this metal thing that kill people, you know what I'm saying? I had to learn all that. But anyway, so they put me in this outfit, and I was very homesick. For about 2 weeks, you know, I couldn't almost take it. But back where I came from, there was a family that my wife knew. They were called John Maniscalco was their last names, and they had 3 boys that was in their service. So I was there about a week and a half, and I was in the 4th platoon, the 2nd platoon. It was the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th platoon. We'd have roll call every morning, 5 o'clock. Get out there, you know. And this one time, after a week and a half, I heard the last scalpel. So, gee, I said, that sounds familiar. Can't be. I said, Johnny Kelly, we called him Kelly back east. Can't be. I grew up with him. I went to the sergeant. Sergeant, I said, this scalpel, where are they from? He said, I don't know, from New York somewhere. I said, do you have any idea where? He said, well, Genesee, Genasco. I said, Geneseo? He said, yeah. I said, you're kidding me. My wife's cousin. Of course, I wasn't married then, but it was her cousin. So I went into the mess hall, and sure enough, there he was. He said, hey, Dominic. He said, and I was homesick from there anymore. Went through the whole war with her cousin, all the way through the war. Then there was another time when I went to the mess sergeant and I would go up to this warehouse, go shopping, just like a grocery store, pick up supplies. And there was a Jeep pulled up in front of us with the 441 AAA. And I went up to the sergeant in the Jeep and I said, do you have a Sergeant Sam Orlando? Yeah. Where is he? And he told me, he said, gee, it's close to where we camp. It's my uncle. So I went, there was a baseball game going on, softball. See, sometimes what they would do is the infantry would go up on the lines and they'd stay, I don't know how many days, they'd bring them back for 5 or 6 days to take showers, to relax a little bit, then back up on the lines again. Quartermaster, we didn't have to do that because we were mostly behind the lines. And then I see him sitting on the bleacher and I tapped him in the back. I said, hey buddy, give me a light. He turned around and he almost fell off the bench. It's my uncle. I met him, you know, it's pretty good to be all the outfits and all the GIs and all that, to find your uncle there. And my wife's cousin, being in the same outfit, that was her thing. But after that I was homesick, but not as bad as I was at the beginning. And then for writing when we go home, we used to write letters at home. And they would censor them. You had to be very careful what you said. And when I left home, I always, to go overseas, I told my whole family that when I write the letters and I say I'm okay, fine, that means okay. But if I don't say that, there's something wrong. And the way they would get the letters would be like this one here. Let me get it out of here. Where is it over here? This is the way my parents would get the letter. That's it. They call that V-mail, victory mail. That's what they would get. See, it's Germany, the date and all that, and that's the letter. That's the way it would look when my sister or my mother and father would get my mail. That was during World War II. They call that V-mail, victory mail. Is there anybody else? Any more questions? But you're talking to a real guy that was through that. So, is there anything else I could say?
Where did you work after the war?
Well, after the war, I worked for the, came back about 1.5 years, and I got married. And I had a boy and a girl. Now I got 3 grandsons, 2 granddaughters. In fact, my grandson was Nick. And I worked at the gas company for 37 years. Prevailing natural gas became Rochester Gas and Electric. I worked in the gas department. And I was 59 years old when I retired, and I just turned 90 the 2nd of October. So I'm still alive talking about it. You had another question, Mike?
It was the same question.
I can't hear you, that's,
It was the same question I just wanted to know what you did after the war.
still can't hear
It
you.
was the same question.
It was the same question. Yeah, then I got 3 grandsons, 2 granddaughters, 2 great-grandsons. And we lived here in Pennsylvania. And my, Nick over there, he was in La Jolla. He used to live here in Pennsylvania. He went to La Jolla High. My older grandson, Tony, was here for a couple of years here. He lived in Carmel High School, and then he went to La Jolla. But, is there any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was it hard to get back into the daily life?
Oh, you mean after the war?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because you gotta remember, over there you were tense all the time, scared all the time, and you were around people getting killed, and, you know, just the war. You know what the war was like, is not a real picnic being over there. Everybody's just, of course, being the quartermaster, sometimes you were a little lucky, you were behind the front lines. I always say that the infantry, once they hit the beach, walked all the way to Germany, more or less. We drove most of the way, being quartermaster. The infantry walked. Yeah, about 1.5 years, then I settled down and got married, and in fact, we just celebrated 67 years. At the same time.
I think got a chance.
And she was here last year, and she talked about the people that stayed behind, civilians, what they gave up, they gave up tires, gasoline, butter, all kinds of stuff they gave up. And we did a little dance for them, we did the jitterbug, remember that?
Yeah, that's right. We put some music on. They did a little big band era
Band
dancing for the students. This is how we did it when we were 18. Yeah.
See, 18 years old was a little different than what you people have here.
How about this photograph up here? Did you talk about this one yet?
Okay, yeah. This is when the war ended, and I thought I was going to get out right away, but then they sent us to Camp Gruber, Oklahoma. These fellas are closest of my buddies right here. That's Ziggy Potapsky, Andy Mastandria. They lived in Buffalo, New York. This guy down there, Tony Capo, lived in Pennsylvania. And we were close buddies. And we took this picture just before they sent us to Fort Dix to be discharged. He died. Just died this past year. He died. And this guy here with the cigarette in his mouth should have died because he smoked. He's still alive. You're talking about it. that's my buddy. See out there going, I'm the only one. But I had a lot of other buddies in there too. But that's the picture we took. We just getting ready to go to Fort Dix, all dressed up.
I got another one here.
It's a jacket. This is the jacket I went through all the way through. See, Mary, my wife is a good seamstress. She wanted to fix it so I could button it. I said, no, leave it just the way it is. Now this was taken May. This was in Salzburg, Austria. It was the early part of May when the Germans were ready to surrender. We were out there waiting for the news from our sergeant. He came on, he said, well, the Germans have surrendered. There was another outfit there, the 3052 Salvage and Collecting Quartermaster, same deal. One of us are going to the Pacific from here. The rest of us are going back home, 30-day furlough, then going to the Pacific. We were sweating it out. That's when we were waiting to hear who was going to go where. And they come out and told us that we were the lucky ones to go to the United States. The other ones went right over to the Pacific. And we drove back on the trucks all the way. We stopped in Paris for 2 nights. We slept under the Eiffel Tower on the big park that they had there. Then we came back on the Liberty ship. And the Liberty ship we came back on, we actually had ice cream. It was the American Liberty ship. And the commander, sea commander, said, tomorrow morning we'll be landing in the good old USA, United States of America. So we stayed up on deck. But when we went overseas, you couldn't go on deck. You had to stay below all the time. Couldn't go up on deck. The only time I went on deck above was the sergeant came in and wanted volunteers for the garbage detail. Didn't know what that was. You go up on deck and you throw the garbage roll. So we did that on the Queen Elizabeth. And that ship was doing this here. You know why they were going this way? German submarines, U-boats were there. In the North Atlantic, they sunk a lot of ships with troops and stuff on it, supplies. Years ago, my wife and I were watching the Discovery Channel. And they put up a map of the United States. Now Hitler had it all figured out how he was going to separate the states. North, Central, and Eastern states were going to be under the Nazi regime. The southern states were going to be under Mussolini, which was the Italians. Western states, where we're living right now, is under the Japanese. And just think about this. Freedom did not come free. Deceased bodies are under the White Cross. I'm not the hero. The heroes are still over there. Some never even made land. Still in the water in Omaha Beach. You get up in the morning, you have breakfast, you go to McDonald's, you come to school, you get in your car, you go to the dance, to the theaters and all that. Preserve your freedom. Don't take it for granted. It was a tough deal to get. Freedom did not come free. Take it from me, I know. When for guys like me, you guys wouldn't be sitting here. That's what I got to say.